Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching the big India Today Editors Roundtable. Just about a year ago, the Chinese state-run media was threatening India with war. Today, the Chinese president laid out an unprecedented red carpet for the Indian Prime Minister. There's big talk of India and China resetting their equation. What does resetting the equation really mean? Is that even possible? Or are there way too many internal conflicts that will bog this relationship down? Did Modi do the right thing by risking so much political equation when he's gone across to meet the Chinese president? We'll debate that and a lot more over the next 1 hour. We will have ground reports coming in from Wuhan. But before that, Anand Krishnan, my colleague in China, gets you all that happened through the day today.
Soaking in China's culture. Reinventing ties with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
मुझे खुशी है कि इस informal summit का इसको काफी आपने मार्क में दिया.
And resonating a domestic pitch for 2019 in the Dragon's Lair. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who reached Wuhan for a two-day informal summit, was received by Xi Jinping at the Hubei Provincial Museum. Who waited for him at the end of a red carpet. A splash of Chinese culture awaited him, as dancers performed live in traditional Chinese costumes. The two leaders then sat down for a one-on-one icebreaker, after which they headed to visit an exhibition of cultural relics and treasure at the museum. This was followed by delegation-level talks between both the countries. Besides Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping, top Indian officials including NSA, Duval and top Chinese officials attended the meet. With the ties seemingly reset, a hopeful Prime Minister invited Xi for a similar informal meet in India in 2019.
मुझे खुशी है कि ये informal summit ये हमारी एक regular व्यवस्था विकसित हो और मुझे खुशी होगी 2019 में ऐसे ही एक informal summit भारत की धरती पर हम लोगों को करने का अवसर मिले.
Officials tell India Today that specific issues are unlikely to figure, but they will at the same time come to some agreement on principles to address several problems that have cropped up in relations, whether be it differences on tackling terrorism, especially from Pakistan, or China's Belt and Road Initiative. It still remains to be seen if this meeting of minds in Wuhan will still help India and China begin a new chapter in their relationship. Reporting for India Today in Wuhan, China, this is Anand Krishnan.
Joining us now on the India Today Editors Roundtable, I want to introduce first our man on the ground, the top Beijing correspondent reporting for any Indian organization. Anand Krishnan is joining us live from Wuhan. Welcome, Anand. With me here in the India Today Mediaplex, Sushant Sareen. Flanking him is Jaidev Ranade, former Additional Secretary of the Research and Analysis Wing. Gaurav Ballabh is a spokesperson of the Congress Party. Flanking him, our Defence Editor Sudhir Ranjan Sen, our Foreign Affairs Editor Geeta Mohan. Gaurav Bhatia represents the BJP. I want to go across to Anand Krishnan first. Big talk of India and China resetting their equation. What has emerged on day one of the Modi-Xi meet, Anand?
Well, Rahul, I think the immediate takeaway that people were looking for, I think, is a very strong indication of how they are planning beyond 2019 for the future of the relationship. As we just reported, the Prime Minister invited Xi for a summit in 2019, and Xi, for the first time, used the word saying that he wanted a new chapter in ties. That's something that China has emphasized, and I think is significant as well. But in terms of specific takeaways on many of the differences we've been covering, whether it's the NSG or Masud Azhar, both sides are saying this isn't the format for them to address these specifics. And the hope is that they at least will narrow some of the differences on the principles that have led to these differences. So that's what they're saying, but we'll have to see in the weeks and months ahead if it does actually yield in the tangible outcomes that both India and China are hoping for.
Just a few months ago, the Chinese state-run media was threatening India with war, threatening to send tanks down the Indian chicken neck. Now, they're laying out the red carpet. What's changed and why?
I think the international situation has changed. I don't think the Chinese have suddenly woken up to, that they need to be good friends with India. I think their problems with the Americans are also, agitating them and knocking some sense into their heads that, you can't have the kind of periphery you have where you have conflicts emerging with the South Koreans, with the Japs, with the Indians, and you still take on the Americans. So I think they're trying to cool temperatures down, which means that they are under pressure, both on the economic front because of the kind of trade war which is looming, and they don't know how the Japanese and the South Koreans, who are part of the American sphere of influence, how they are going to react to any emerging trade war. Remember that they have also got exemptions on many of the issues where tariffs have been imposed upon the Chinese. So there is that issue, and at that point of time, to continue to have an India which is getting very close to the Americans, also going into the other camp, I don't think the Chinese want them. So they're not doing us a favor, which means that rather than thinking that we might be negotiating with the Chinese from a position of weakness, perhaps we should see that maybe the Chinese are negotiating with us from a position of weakness, and maybe this is the time where we can try and push the envelope a little bit more than what we have done in the past.
Geeta Mohan, why is this an informal summit? In diplomacies, what does an informal summit mean when the Indian Prime Minister has gone there? There's clearly some structure to it, and we just heard them say in 2019 as well there could be an informal summit. How will that be informal even if this one is?
Well, the fact that in a structured meeting, Rahul, there needs to be outcomes. Now, the Indian side is not very sure if there are going to be outcomes, real outcomes. The Chinese side also not sure whether they'll be able to bring
Doval
about
has had a series of meetings
outcomes.
before this, so they've had some preparatory work.
Absolutely. So they do not want to ensure outcomes. If they happen, it will be a positive. If it does not happen, then it is certainly not a negative. And the informal setting is because this is the two leaders showing that in absolute terms, this is political intervention at the highest level to bring temperatures down, and which is what we are seeing over here. They're only going to do that, bring temperatures down.
The last time we saw the Prime Minister do something informal in the diplomatic sector was when he landed on the way back from Afghanistan. In Pakistan, we saw how that ended up with the Pathankot attack. There is a certain amount of risk that's been taken. Is the BJP certain it's worth it?
It is definitely worth it, and I think this is a confidence building measure that is being taken, and there are certain issues which are contentious, and India, wherever it was required under the leadership of Narendra Modi ji, took a strong stand. But today is not the day to just discuss those issues which are contentious.
No, but we seem to have softened our position vis-a-vis China recently.
I would tell you that anything that is in the interest of the country and that would be beneficial for us, even if it means that yes, you have to soften your stand, then I think the government...
that India has indeed softened its stance?
Because it is
Let me give you an example. Because earlier we were saying that the Dalai Lama will go to Arunachal Pradesh and we were standing strong. Then the top bureaucrats in the government start sending out letters that no one should celebrate any function to do with the Tibetans, don't come anywhere close. Clearly those two approaches are totally divergent.
Let me tell you, in diplomacy, you have to sometimes change your position also. But the most important thing is that the interest of the nation comes first. And on issues which actually strain our relationship, we would definitely, have an insight into it, and we would not change our stand, like our sovereignty, our integrity. Those are issues that cannot be compromised with. But there are other issues like trade between the two countries, where there can be a win-win situation. If we can inspire confidence and have a better relationship, then why not? But if I may just give, a very important remark on what the opposition
we'll
party...
deal with the opposition later.
But that's very important for today's discussion.
Jaydev Ranade, as a long-time watcher of China, what do you think is going on in the dragon's mind? And how do you view the recalibration on the part of the Modi government? Gaurav Bhatia conceding there's a certain softening. There's actually a huge divergence in our original approach to what we're seeing today.
I think there are two factors which are worth keeping in mind. First, as far as China is concerned and Xi Jinping is concerned, he is very clear as to where he wants China to be in 2020, 2030 and 2050. He spelled it out at not only the 19th Party Congress, he's also reiterated that at the 13th National Party Congress, which has just finished. So, National People's Congress.
But he's been clear about that for a while. Our approach to China is what seems to have
that's what
changed.
I'm trying to say. He's reiterated it. Keep that in mind, that as far as China is concerned, they've not wavered from what their destination is. That's what I'm trying to say. Secondly, I think the international climate has changed. Certainly, there is turbulence in the relationship with the United States. But more importantly, Chinese international affairs experts and strategists are telling the leadership that they need to recalibrate their relations with India. They've elevated India in their list of priorities from a country that can be ignored to now a country that needs attention, not because they think that we are now a big power, but because they think that we are now have the potential to create trouble for them.
But what's
and
the
derail
situation,
their ambitions.
Sudhiranjan Sen, along the borders at this time? We saw reports of a military build-up around the areas of Doklam, a military build-up elsewhere along the LAC as well. That continues. On the ground, they're actually creeping in on us.
Very definitely. If you look at North Doklam, they've set up permanent, positions across North Doklam. That wasn't the case a year ago. More importantly, yesterday we had the air chief conceding that the number of aircrafts that we are seeing in Tibet region, although those airfields, we must underline, those airfields are not yet ready, but those airfields are seeing unusually high activity. And also the number of people who are being posted out there or being stationed right now is quite unusual. So, after the Doklam crisis, not only have we seen the transgressions across the borders increase, we are also seeing a permanent structure in North Doklam Plateau, completely occupied, so to say, quote unquote, to use the words of the army chief, and the air chief agreeing that yes, now the situation out there, we have to keep a constant watch.
So they're enhancing military positions.
Definitely.
And at the same time laying out a diplomatic red carpet. Ambassador K.C. Singh, what do you make of this?
Look, firstly, it's not sudden. It's been certainly... thawing is started around the end of February when Foreign Secretary went there, came back, issued the letter to Cabinet Secretary. So there is some choreography which started at the end of February and then the visit started, etc. So it's a deliberate thing. It's not something which has happened overnight. Comparing what you were saying just now, Prime Minister's Lahore visit wasn't informal. It was impromptu. Where nobody knew. He just said, I'm going there. This is not impromptu. There's a deliberation, there's some calculation which has gone in. And obviously both sides feel the need. I don't think these meetings take place because one side thinks is stronger, the other thing is weaker. There's a geostrategic change. And it's very interesting with the Chinese that why is it happening on the same day that the North Korean, South Korean meeting took place? Why did they attack Vietnam when Vajpayee was in China in 1979? So with Chinese, why did they attack us in 62 as the Cuban Missile Crisis began? So with Chinese, the historical moments have a certain calculation. They calculate.
What's their calculation now?
They are trying to divert attention from the North Korea, South Korea thing. They're losing one of their major powers which they've been using to tie down Republic of Korea, Japan and US. A reunification means that their buffer with those powers is gone. Americans will be able to withdraw their troops. What happens on the Korean Peninsula? Democracy comes there. Tomorrow it has an effect in China. It's a captive market they have for minerals, metals, etc. Many other reasons.
Only the North Korean and South Korean leaders have met to immediately extend that to say that there may be an immediate reunification.
And Rahul, that's making more headlines than this meeting.
No.
So there's
what
no
is happening
diversion
next
happening
is that Trump has said that he is meeting the leader. Pompeo has already gone and met. Director CIA and Secretary of State has met. So I think the Chinese have lost control over that process, where this guy is moving on his own and asserting a certain independence. And when one of your puppets gets out of hand, then the plot changes.
That's interesting.
As far as the people are concerned. So the Chinese are now adjusting to that geostrategic change, besides, of course, the trade war with
Rahul Gandhi tweeted this afternoon to say, "Dear Prime Minister, saw the live TV feed of your No Agenda China visit. You look tense. A quick reminder. 1. Doklam. 2. Pakistan-China economic corridor passing through POK, that's Indian territory. India wants to hear you talk about these crucial issues. You have our support." Now, this is just petty politics. At a time when you've got your most important neighbor engaging with your Prime Minister at such a high level, surely just for this period, we can leave politics aside.
See, I want to say that whether it's a formal or informal, when two state heads are meeting, don't you think that national security and national interest should be talked? What's the informality or formality? Informality is there because they don't want to take the pressure. They want, because they are having full uncertain foreign policy and they don't want to come with the empty hands. So they had made this as an informal. Why this is informal? We are asking a very valid question, that for 73 days our soldiers had a more or less like a battle and prevented Chinese troops to construct a permanent structures. Now they are there, helipads are there, armed vehicles are there, the lighthouses are there. So what was done? 7-8 months back this had happened. Why? What is about informality? My second question is that we had reached up to the 5 kilometers road was constructed on the southern side of the Doklam Plateau, and our national integrity is question mark because that road, from that road, that what Siliguri, what we call Siliguri corridor is there. So what's wrong in that? When we are talking about CPCP, what's wrong in that?
Okay, you've had your say. Gaurav Bhatia, there are real contentious issues between India and China. China stalling a bid to enter the NSG, China not wanting Masood Azhar to be acted against, the Doklam crisis. Now, sure, all the reports that Anant is filing, others are filing from China, say these contentious issues are currently on the back burner. Why? If this is an opportunity to talk at the highest level with the Chinese leadership, should the real issues afflicting the India-China relationship not be discussed?
Rahul, I'll come to that, but I'm grateful that you had asked that pointed question to the Congress spokesperson. And the need of the hour is to be an Indian first. Politics can wait. And it would have been very healthy and a welcome move if Rahul Gandhi would have wished the Prime Minister good luck for the bilateral talks. And, you know, at this time you realize that somewhere Congress has lost the plot.
Okay, so that's answer my question.
I will, but this is important because he spent some time on this, so I just want to respond. Sure. This is an important political...
question.
Yeah, I am coming to it. Give me 30 seconds first. There is a complete disconnect. You know, the citizens of the country feel one way, Congress is disconnected completely. They do not value the sentiments of the countrymen. But coming to your point, I would only say, as I said earlier, that in question of our
NSG, Masood Azhar, Doklam.
Let me tell you that the fight against terror, India has been very successful in ensuring that countries like the US, the BRICS summit also, we received a lot of support. Today, US and China...
No, why are we not taking these issues up with China is my question.
No, I will. I'm saying the summit is still on. It's a 48-hour summit. Don't you think that we should give that time to the Prime Minister?
Sure.
And once he comes back, we can discuss it. And why do we assume that, you know, the Chinese government would not be watching us? I think we should give it our best shot. You know, we can discuss these issues later once he's back. And maybe a lot of headway would be made.
Anant Krishnan, issues like India's bid to enter the nuclear suppliers group, Masood Azhar's, the action against Masood Azhar, which India wants should be taken, which China tries to stall at Pakistan's behest, and also the Doklam crisis. Are these issues being discussed when Modi meets Xi?
Well, Rahul, what Indian sources are telling us is he will not be directly mentioning the nuclear suppliers group or Masood Azhar, frankly, because the specific issues aren't the platform, but he will be talking about the larger issues which provide the context for these problems. For instance, the need for India to have access to civilian nuclear technology, or for China, for any country to not have double standards on terrorism. So he's going to be phrasing it in a careful way, but it'll be very clear as far as the Chinese are concerned what India's core issues are. And I should add, Rahul, that the very reason why they decided to have this informal summit was because having the pressure of a concrete summit where you need to put a joint statement and outcomes, in many sense, it restrains what you can do in terms of having a conversation where you frankly raise issues and you frankly express your concerns. So whether it's CPEC or whether it's the NSG, I think the MEA has made its position very clear. So I think the thinking in the Indian government, which has some rationale behind it, is for the PM to publicly raise this on this two-day visit to China. It would ultimately undermine the very reason to have this informal summit. So that's India's thinking going into it, but we'll have to wait and see.
Is this good strategy, Sushant Sareen? Because you can't really, after a big standoff, go to your neighbor and poke him in the eye. So naturally, you have to make diplomatic talk and you have to work your way upwards. Does it work for India to leave contentious issues aside for the moment?
Look, really, I'm not quite sure whether these are core issues, as as Anand was probably talking about. How is NSG or Masood Azhar is a Tucha from Pakistan, who's a third-rate terrorist. Okay, fine, he's probably an international terrorist, but is Masood Azhar going to define India's relationship with China for the next 20, 30, 40 years? NSG, yes, the Chinese are being bloody-minded about it, probably because they want to give their Pakistani clients a bit of a leg up, probably stall India's rise or India's entry into that particular club. But how is it going to really affect India's technological advancement in a number of areas? There are limits to what the Chinese, to my mind, these are irritants which are emblematic of a larger problem in the relationship. Even on the border dispute, I was talking with Mr. Ranade, we talk very loosely that we need a solution to it. What is the framework of our solution? Have we thought about it? What are the Chinese ready to sign off?
Representatives have been talking round after round.
They've been talking about it, but are we ready to, there has to be a middle ground. What is the give and what is the take? We are, at least I am not aware of it. Perhaps some people in the MEA or Mr. Ranade's organization are. I am not. At least in the public domain, it's not very clear. So I would say that we are looking at this relationship and we need to start looking at it in a larger strategic context, which means that in the coming 20, 30 years, we will be entering into some kind of a contestation with China. It's written into the script, it's bound to happen. What will that strategic contestation be all about? Is it going to be cooperation? Are we going to be undercutting each other? Are we going to be finding proxies? Will it be a game of balance of power? Or are we going to take care of each other's concerns? I don't know. I don't have the answers to that. But I think those are the larger big picture items. Now, on CPEC, for example, of course, I think the government of India has clearly stated its position when in the SCO summit, we did not sign on to endorsement of the BRI. And if we are not signing on to the BRI, we are certainly not going to be endorsing the CPEC in any which way. Again, on Gagan Shakti, very clear messages that yes, the reach is going to be all the way up to Djibouti and all the way up to the Sunda Straits. I think that is very clear messaging from our side. And yet, there was also some softening from our side. You mentioned the Dalai Lama, but also, we seem to have shown unseemly keenness to really re-engage with the Chinese.
Is that also I think because
you have to look at it in balance?
That we've kind of come to the conclusion post Doklam that given the fact that the economy is 5 times our size, the defense spending is thrice ours, we are simply in no position to take on the Chinese.
No, I don't think so. That's jumping to a wrong conclusion. Both have to be ready for it. That's what I was spelling out earlier. Now coming to, he's absolutely right. Single terrorists, this and that, those are negotiating chips that Chinese have developed to deal with you. Doklam is the manifestation of a larger problem. Larger problem is in 2005, the Chinese signed an agreement with us when the Prime Minister came here called the Principles for Settling the Border Dispute. They did it as you were negotiating your nuclear agreement with the Americans. They didn't want you to go into the American corner, so they put all the chips on the table. But we had to go ahead with that because that had nothing to do with the nuclear power. We were being basically unshackled from the dual-use technology regimes. There's no way that we could not have taken up that deal. Post 2008, these special representatives meetings have not moved on the border because the Chinese stepped back from the 2005 agreement. So what we need to see is, are they willing to go back to 2005
no, but
and start looking at the border?
What's the guarantee? Because
No,
with China, they can take two steps forward
there's no guarantee.
and 3 steps back.
Let me just spell it out. There's no guarantee. This will come as the next SRs meet. It will not be known tomorrow. If in the SRs meeting, specific exchanging of maps, they've not exchanged maps. Now, if that starts happening, they stop creating hurdles, then you know they've gone back to 2000. Chinese will not have any sudden, do not make sudden moves. They'll make very gradual moves. Whatever retreats they do will be very gradual. You've already done one in terms of Dalai Lama. So now you will wait for them to do it. Now, in the meanwhile, it may work, it may not work. In the meanwhile...
So we've done retreats.
Yeah.
Gaurav Bhatia accepting that position now is slightly softer than earlier. But what have we seen from the Chinese so far? Why are we even doing this?
Rahul, I don't think we should look at it as, you know, us being soft or the Chinese being soft. I mean, to my understanding...
No, where are they being soft?
I'm saying they're not. I'm saying we should not look at it from the point of view of what have we got and what have we done at the moment. This is just the beginning, is the first step. I think that what the main objective of this meeting is to try and assess whether the next few years we are going to have any kind of a collaborative relationship, or whether it is going to be a tough contest all the way through. That is what we are trying to figure out. The rest of the thing will come. Chinese have adopted a certain obdurate position vis-a-vis us over the years. They blocked us on the UN Security Council. They blocked us in NSG. They have, their relationship with Pakistan is way ahead than what has been mentioned here on tactical nuclear weapons, etc. They've entered into Maldives, a whole lot of things. But at the moment, we're just trying to see, is it possible to cooperate with these guys at all or not? And don't forget, there is no trust between the two, neither on their side nor on our side. So these are all things that have to come up. And what Casey was saying about, this will follow and that, it will follow if they feel it is expedient for them. At the moment, they're in a jam. That's why they're talking to us.
So how
and
much
we should
of
push our
the
advantage.
current rapprochement or the seeming rapprochement between India and China has to do with Donald Trump making the moves that he is? As American president talking about a trade war with China, is that really what's pushing Beijing to adopt a softer position towards India? And also, what can Prime Minister Modi hope to come back with? Sudhir Ranjan Sen has been reporting about the possibility of some kind of a hotline being set up between military emissaries on the Indian and Chinese side. Will that help prevent the next Doklam kind of crisis? We'll delve into that. In part 2, I will focus on what Prime Minister Modi can hope to come back with in this informal summit with the Chinese President. Ambassador Casey Singh is with us, flanking him Gaurav Bhatia of the BJP, Geeta Mohan, our Foreign Affairs Editor, Sudhir Ranjan Sen, also with us, Professor Gaurav Vallabh of the Congress. We've got Jaydev Ranade, former Additional Secretary of Law, and Sushant Sareen. I want to put this question first to Sushant. Sushant, what do you think the Prime Minister will come back with? Tangibly, will there be anything to show at the end of this today?
Look, frankly, I have no idea. But I think we will get to know whether this has moved forward or not, whether this is just a reset, because the connotation of reset in my dictionary is very negative. It reminds me of the 80s and the early 90s when we used to have corrupted software in computers, and every time the computer would crash, we would press the reset button. It would work for a few days and again it would crash. So that's the connotation of reset in my mind. So if it is a reset, I don't know, but if it's something much more, we'll find out. But if in the weeks and months ahead, we see some forward movement on what I would call CBMs, I think that would indicate that Chinese are ready to move forward to the next level. Otherwise, it'll be pretty much be business as usual. The fact of the matter, however, remains that you cannot ignore China. What can these
building measures be?
This fellow Masood Azhar or NSG or some of these small things that we keep harping about, which make big press in India, but in the larger strategic framework, they really don't amount to much. Now, if we move forward on that, I would see that as a signal that we are ready to go up to the next level. Otherwise, it's pretty much business as usual, but we cannot ignore China, so we will have to remain engaged with China at one level or another. And whatever political level discussions we have, whether formal, informal, structured, unstructured, I think that's par for the course. We can't simply say no to that.
There's been talk in the diplomatic ecosystem about a possible hotline with China. Where are we on that? Is it likely to come through this trip? Will it make any difference at all in the case of the next military escalation?
Well, to begin with, to take your last question first, it makes a huge difference in case of military escalations, because senior leaderships of both militaries can talk to each other. It's not left to the ground commanders, then being escalated to senior commanders. Where is it? Both India and China agree that it needs to be done. But the problem was China was asking you to do it at the command level, whereas we want it at the PLA level. Now that seems to have been worked out. Although it is a CBM, but it has a huge impact. At least
we've got a confidence building measure, a hotline with Pakistan. What difference has that ever made? Look at what's happening along the LOC.
You see, you cannot equate Pakistan and China. They are not the same countries. Pakistan survives by keeping Kashmir boiling. That is not the case.
Slightly more normal than Pakistan.
That is not the case with China. And you have to agree.
And it's not a rogue army.
It's not a rogue army. It's a very disciplined army. You have to agree that we have historically have had problems along the border. Much of the border we claim there are, they claim also at the same point of time.
The one thing you have to really accept is that Prime Minister Modi is really, in one sense, giving China another chance, because when he invited President Xi to the Sabarmati riverbank, he was backstabbed soon after. He was scarred. The government, all its actions betrayed that scar and the aftermath of that scar. He seems, though, heading into a crucial election. If this backfires on him, the Congress and Gaurav Vallabh already has his claws out, will come for him very hard.
In fact, New York Times put a different story 2 days ago. They said Mr. Modi's gone there because he doesn't want a surprise before elections. So that's on top of his agenda. So that means peace and stability at the border is number one. A new mechanism, that's fine. Long term, you see, everything has an ascending scale. Immediately, some concrete steps will be there to create. They have.
Do you buy this conspiracy theory, Gaurav Bhatia? A lot of critics saying that he's gone there to buy peace before 2019, just before my big general election. Don't start breathing fire again.
First of all, let's not see this visit as a political tool. It's more to do with our country and to improve relations with China. And we have to understand that China has also accepted this meeting, an informal meeting. So therefore, China also wants that relationship between India and China should improve. That's the positive message out of it. And I think where India needs to take a tough stand, be it the China-Pakistan economic corridor or Doklam, India has shown that we will take a strong stand. But at the same time,
you can't accuse the BJP of betraying India's national interest on any of the key points. When it came to looking the Chinese dragon in the eye on Doklam, the government did that. Despite all the pressure that may have been made to bear on the issue of the Belt and Road Initiative, India hasn't buckled and said, we will support it. So in that sense, Prime Minister Modi is standing his ground.
See, what's the problem? That China makes their foreign policy for long term, and ours is a highly uncertain foreign policy under the current
60
government.
Years, the
so
Congress
please
was ruling,
let me answer. Otherwise, if you want to speak,
if you want to
speak about Congress party, then carry on.
Yes, I have to.
No, 1 second, please.
I have not interrupted.
No, it's not about
1 second. I pause this right now.
It's not about
one at a time. One at a time.
If he makes it political, then I will counter it.
One at a time.
I have not made it political. I can ask him tough questions.
Both mics go down. Both mics go down. Both mics go down. I will give you an opportunity to speak. I'm laying out the terms of engagement. Make sense, not noise. One at a time. Both of you will have an opportunity. Gaurav Vallabh, complete your argument.
So what I was telling, that it is a highly uncertain foreign policy under the current government, and this no agenda meeting. I'm surprised somebody says that Rahul Gandhi asked this tweet. If I am asking something about national interest or the national security, is it something wrong? If two prime ministers one prime minister and president is meeting, are they not going to talk about Doklam? Are they not going to talk about the CPEC?
Okay, you made that point. Let Gaurav respond.
The troublesome part is that Rahul Gandhi has become a habitual offender. You remember the visit of Netanyahu ji? When he was visiting India, just before that, there was a tweet by Rahul Gandhi saying Modi ji is awkward, and now this tweet. So, the desperation is leading Congress to this, that they are not worried about national interest. Second, what about the ports during the Congress regime which were developed in Colombo by China? So all this has been answered by Sushma Swaraj. But there are occasions when you have
I get a bad sense that this debate can degenerate unless I intervene. I don't want that to happen. I want to go across to Anand Krishna. Anand Krishna in Wuhan. 1 second. Allow me to moderate, because that's the only way it will be. Anand Krishna. No, this is not okay. This is not okay on either side.
I just want to say one line and no more.
Okay.
There are occasions when it comes to national integrity and national security, political parties have to act in a responsible manner. The Congress has
so asking Doklam is against national security.
Gaurav,
you want to say that?
1 second. Anand Krishna in Wuhan, what do you think the Prime Minister will have to show when he lands back in Delhi?
Well, Rahul, I think that's going to be a very difficult task for the Indian government to show something immediately tangible. That's why they've kept the expectations low for this visit. But I think, to be fair, Rahul, I think it's unreasonable to expect CPEC to be resolved, Masood Azhar NSG to be resolved in the course of an 8-hour conversation between Modi and Xi. From the outset, they're saying that this isn't about what the summit's about. It's about giving them the chance to look at the long-term plan for the relationship, to at least not look at the specifics, but at least the principles that both of them can agree on when it comes to global issues, when it comes to things like protectionism, globalization. It's a very different exercise from what I think has been discussed in terms of these specific issues in the relationship. It's something bigger than that. But at the same time, they will be under pressure to show something. So in the next few weeks and months ahead, if these thorny issues are showing no signs of subsiding, then it's going to be very a challenge for the government to explain why it took this political risk with China.
That's correct. And I think that really nails it, because you really have to have something to show. KC Singh, at the end of it all, building into an election year, you know, Prime Minister Modi has done this. He likes to take these diplomatic gambles, going across to meet Nawaz Sharif in Raiwind, and now doing this, because if he has nothing to show for it, or there's another Doklam like skirmish, Gaurav Vallabh and Rahul Gandhi are going to come after Gaurav Bhatia.
You see, what's happened is, I don't want to say who began it or who didn't, but the consensus over not attacking a Prime Minister when he's abroad was broken when Prime Minister started attacking the opposition at diaspora events. And then all bets were off. And ever since then, it's open feed. Everybody does what he does. Now, the problem with this kind of a visit is you're doing a strategic readjustment. Strategic recalibration takes time to manifest. You have a Karnataka election. You've got an atmosphere which is on edge at home. You will be attacked on specifics, on the tactical subject. Though technically it's correct that whatever strategic adjustment you do will take time to show. But if you made foreign policy as a part of domestic dialogue, then people are going to extract from you answers.
So they will just one last point. In your same
just one last point. I had written 3 days ago in the Tribune. I said, why doesn't Prime Minister, before going, I supported his going, sit down with the opposition, take them into confidence, and then go. He would have appeared a stronger person.
If the Prime Minister hits out at former Congress governments when he's abroad, it's only fair game for the Congress to hit out at this Prime Minister's government when he's abroad.
No, I think Mr. Singh also mentioned that he was speaking to the Indian diaspora. That's very important, and it's not as if he's only been hitting. Wherever there was credit to be given, he has also spoken about former prime ministers from the Congress and has praised their work. But yes, Congress became symbolic of corruption in the country. That is the point Narendra Modi ji had raised. But most importantly, I would say, all these foreign visits, engagement with other countries have also yielded results. We have seen consolidation of India as a world power. We have also seen how in our fight against terrorism, US, BRICS and other countries are supported. And we are engaging with countries in bilateral talks that was never done for decades by earlier governments. And you have to give some credit to Narendra Modi.
How much of this has to do with Vijay Gokhale taking over Geeta as Foreign Secretary in comparison with Dr. Jaishankar? Because while Dr. Jaishankar was around, the language of the MEA top brass vis-a-vis China seems to have been very different from the current Foreign Secretary.
It makes a huge difference, Rahul, although the decision on foreign policy matters comes directly from the Prime Minister's office, from Prime Minister and the National Security Advisor, particularly to do with China. But Vijay Gokhale has indeed made a huge difference. He is the China hand. He knows how to deal with China, and he is not soft on China. So
correct.
He is not soft on China. He's actually
that
a
is
hawk.
Often sinologists are that,
yes,
but he is not.
He's a China hand who is hawkish when it comes to China. So that really helps in how to deal.
But his actions and his talk have been very dovish.
Not really, because
since the time he's taken over, the talk has been of a different kind than we saw.
See, the Dalai Lama event, a lot of people are saying that, you know, we've been soft, but then we had representation in Dharamshala. We had a union minister, we had Ram Madhav, a BJP representative.
Stuck away in Dharamshala. It could have been in Delhi.
They did not ask them to move the
it appeared
event.
Soft because they were provocative in the past.
Yes, they just said do not attend. And the Dalai Lama organizers, the event organizers moved the event to
There's another
Dharamshala.
earth-shaking, world agenda-setting event that happened today when the North Korean dictator, tin pot dictator, I don't know if it's fair game to call him that any longer given that he's acting quite sensible, met South Korean President Moon. And that again is what the whole world is tracking, and a lot of what we're seeing in Wuhan could possibly have to do with the fact that across the demilitarized line, the leaders of North Korea and South Korea actually embraced each other. Here's a story.
Kim Jong-un taking baby steps to what the world hopes and prays is a peaceful future. At 10:30 a.m. on Friday, the dictator stepped over the line that separates his country and South Korea and entered the border village of Panmunjom. The first time a North Korean ruler has set his foot on the South Korean soil. He shook hands with his counterpart Moon Jae-in and then invited Moon to the north. The South Korean president happily obliged. Kim Jong-un was then given a ceremonial guard of honor by soldiers in 19th century attire. A few months ago, all this would have been unthinkable. The act for the cameras over, the two leaders soon got down to talks. Many accounts called the interaction jovial. Kim was forthright and apparently cracked jokes about the poor condition of the roads in his country, something which would fetch an ordinary North Korean citizen a jail term. He even apologized for the midnight missile test that gave Moon's men sleepless nights. All that is over now, he assured Moon.
많이 기대하셨던 분들한테 물론 이제 시작에 빙산일각에 지나지 않지만 이 우리 첫 만남과 오늘 이야기된 이게 이제 발표되고 하면 기대하셨던 분들한테 조금이나마 그 기대를 만족을 드렸으면 하는 그런 바람입니다.
좋은 논의들을 많이 이루어서 아주 우리 또 남북의 국민들에게 그리고 또 전 세계 사람들에게 아주 좋은 선물이 될 것 같습니다.
The joint statement was short on specifics but made two big announcements. First, North Korea and South Korea pledged to end the Korean War within a year. Though the last bullets were fired in 1953, the two have been officially at war for the past 65 years. The Korean nations also pledged to remove all nuclear weapons from the peninsula. People in South Korea have welcomed the peace process.
약간 김정은이랑 문재인 대통령이 약간 적 같은 기분이 안 들고 약간 친근한 기분으로 악수를 하는 친구 같은 기분이 들어서 신기했어요.
The meeting between Kim and Moon sets the stage for the big one with American President Donald Trump likely to take place in May or June. While the US is seeking complete denuclearization, many experts believe Kim could be seeking acceptance as a nuclear power. A final deal would depend on how much the US is ready to give up. Bureau Report, India Today.
For the longest time, the North Korean dictator has been mocked at as a tin pot dictator. He certainly isn't acting as one. He is very, very sensible in what he's done the past few days, KCC.
No, I think he's setting forth into the wide world, and this may, logically, he's calling it the tip of an iceberg, and the iceberg may be some kind of a loose federation or reunification, which is a nightmare for China.
And Trump says the Korean War has ended.
It shifts
How
the DMZ.
does this impact India? Yeah. Sushant Suri.
I don't know. Let me just come back to something which was mentioned in the last segment, which was about foreign policy and how, if it does not play out well. Sir, I don't know if foreign policy has any impact on at least the state elections. We saw the Delhi election. Amit Shah tried to sell Obama's visit to the Delhi electorate. It was a 67-3 verdict. And that was a successful visit. So I'm not sure if Karnataka or any of the other state elections. So I don't see how it's going to be.
How does
2019
this Korean
depends
summit
on how badly
and a rapprochement
the rest of
and
the
the end
stuff
of the supposed Korean war impact India and China?
Well, firstly, the manner in which Kim Jong-un has played his cards and the manner in which he's kept his eyes set on the meeting with the US president, he has not wavered on that. He's played a very good hand, rather started out with a weak hand, he's made it strong, he's played it well. If that happens, if North and South have a rapprochement, if he has a meeting with Trump,
who knows,
China,
Donald Trump could get a World Peace Prize.
Well, that I don't know, but Kim Jong-un probably will. But China will come under increased pressure, which will be good for us, in my view.
You know, there's this one tweet that Donald Trump put out. Most of them were totally farcical and comical, but in this he actually made a very important point that all the pundits who thought that there was no possibility of peace between North and South Korea are suddenly advising him on what he should do next, saying that he had no idea what to do in the first instance. So on this one occasion, Donald Trump is having the last laugh and Beijing is possibly feeling the pressure. That's what our pundits say. You heard from some of the top pundits on this India Today India-China Editors Roundtable. I want to thank you all for making the effort of joining us in the India Today Mediaplex and keeping the discussion, for the most part at least, sensible. Leave noise outside, come here to make sense. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye. Good night.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.